So I finished painting the covers. It did take 2 coats. It has painted really nicely. There are a few little areas on the actual book cover that are dented, so that's nothing to do with the paint, it was the book covers. The yellow covered the white better. It only needed 2 coats in a few places. It wasn't, I did paint it everywhere, but it didn't actually need 2 coats everywhere. But they are done. I used the cardstock, cut the pieces to size, just inked the edge, and they are Fabri-Tacked on. We still have more to do to the covers, but I just thought, you know, that's a pretty basic step that I wouldn't make you watch. Like I said, the book covers were a little bit damaged in places. They're not perfect, but then, you know, who needs it to be perfect? So I love this paper stock, I really do. We're going to do 2 things today. I have already prepared the signatures for this one. This is going to be a 2 signature journal. I have some papers ready which we're going to organise for this journal, because this is the one we're going to probably make completely on film, or mostly on film. But I have the stamp sets that came with the paper pad. These are, again, they are Wildflower Meadow, the clear stamps, and I have a piece of the tea stained paper from Arteza, and I just thought we would try the inks out and the stamps. So let's give them, I haven't opened them yet, I haven't pre-tried, so this is, you know, us doing this together. Let's get these out of the packet. It's jumper weather here today. It looks very autumnal out there, not spring-like at all. So I'm gonna try a bit of each. I have 2 types of ink to try, because they're the 2 types I have. I have the archival inks, and I have some distress inks, colour ones, which I thought might work with some of these flowers. Now, when you're using multiple colour inks on a stamp, unless you've got a stamp board and you can completely clean your stamp and start again, the distress inks will bleed and they will mess up your pads. The archival inks, not so much, they're fab for this kind of work. So let's have a little go. I really want to try the bird first. And I'm going to use potting soil for this one, and then we will try the distress ink, and I've got the frayed burlap. I do have some others, but these are just the ones I've got out. So baby wipe at the ready, and tissue. So let's have a go. I'm going to try the archival first. I've got a feeling this is going to work very well. And I'm really interested to see how these stamps look too, because they are super cute. And I'm going to do that just in the brown. That's a very nice impression. That's a gorgeous bird, isn't it? Now, obviously this is sketch paper. It's going to be a little bit porous, but it's working perfectly with the archival ink. I'm not sure if it's very hard to tell whether this is detail in the stamp or whether it is slightly bleeding. It's archival ink, so I doubt it. It's probably the detail in the stamp. So this one is the frayed burlap, the distress ink. It doesn't sit on the stamp in the same way as the archival. So let's try this. And the distress ink has taken really well as well. So this is kind of trialing because I want to put some stamps on the pages, but I wanted to make sure they were going to work well before I stamped the pages, because I didn't want to kind of waste it as such. Now I am going to grab, let's try Distress Oxide. So this again is Vintage Photo. I'm going to do it again with the bird. I actually really love that colour. So we've got the Archival, the Distress Ink and a Distress Oxide, and they've all stamped really well on this Arteza paper. Very nice. Okay, so let's try and do a few colour prints and see how that goes. Back, let's try a flower first of all. I think I'm always worried these are gonna break when you pull them off the plastic for the first time. I haven't actually done it, but concerned it might. Now, I don't have a fantastic selection of the archival inks. I'm just turning that over briefly to look at the colours on there. So that's purple at the bottom. I'm going to take the green and I'm going to try and just grab those leaves and the stem, which of course is not an easy task. Now I have a blue which is probably very bright for this job, but let's see how it looks. And here comes Luna, just to have a little look. What I think I'm going to do is try and grab the bee with the potting soil, and then continue with the blue. Like I said, this works very well with the Distress inks, with the archival inks. I'm not so sure how it's going to work with the Distress Oxides, the Distress inks. Can't get my words out today. So you can see the colours. It's like hold your breath time. Looks fabulous. Love that. I really do love that. That's fab. Right, so I'm just going to give this a wipe. And we'll try it again, but we'll try it this time with the Distress inks. You can't see the colour quite as well on here, but you can see how it doesn't kind of catch the stamp quite the same way. And let's have a go. Looks like it's going to be pretty cool. And again, love it. That's turned out really nicely. So both of these inks are going to work very well, I think, on here, on this particular paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this dragonfly and give that a go on there. So let's have a little go. Now you can see where I've missed a small amount of ink, but don't those wings look fabulous? And the body actually. Okay, so let's give the dragonfly a go with the Distress inks. That looks pretty cool. I think both inks are working equally as well on this sketch paper. I have to say I am really happy with this sketch paper, and I do think I'm going to be using it. I like the fact it feels really nice. It's slightly thicker than the copier paper. It takes the tea really well. You can clearly ink on it perfectly. You're not going to have any problem you know, with this paper sewing on it, for example. But there you go. That's the Arteza paper and the inks. So I think that's really cool. So I have my pages. I have a selection of book pages that might kind of work well with a woodland theme, and I have just roughly put together 3 signatures. These are slightly bigger than I would normally do, but I tend not to use book covers as much unless they're vintage ones anymore. So each signature has 2 sheets of the Arteza tea dyed paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this on the outside of the signature and leave this edge at the top. The one that's at the bottom will be lost, but I'm going to use that for some embellishments later. So I've just got a selection of different papers in here, and you can see this is the copier paper. When you feel them, you can just feel the quality difference. So I am just going to use a few different pages, and then once these are cut, I will cut the actually I'll pop these into the signatures, and then we'll cut the signatures to size using our mat. Now I'm not sure, I think I'm going to use my trusty metal ruler, because the other ruler doesn't have an edge on. If you're cutting fabric, that's quite flat, and I think that will be fine, but when you're cutting a signature, it's got quite a lot of bulk, and I want the metal ruler to kind of, you know, push this down and hold it into place. So I have 3 signatures and I have these book pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort them, and I don't actually have the right amount, of course. So these come from the, what are they called? The Observer books. These pages come from the Observer books. So I'm going to put one on there and one on there, and then I have this little one which comes from the Collins, and I'm going to pop that in the middle. So each signature is going to have 3 book pages. So I'm just going to grab my first one. I'm going to go into pages, and I think I'm going to start with that larger book page, and then I'm just going to go a couple more. I think I'm going to put that in. I'm not doing this in any kind of, you know, I'm not going to overthink this. There we go. So that's the first signature. Okay, so cutting our pages. We need our measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my signatures and pop them into my journal. Now I'm going to line them up roughly where they're going to go. And I'm going to grab my pencil, and I'm just putting a little pencil mark in there, and I'm going to measure that, which is 12.5 centimetres. Bear with me, I'm going to find out what that is in inches. An inch. Oh, me and inches. We're not friends. We're not friends. So let's see how this is going to go. Now the other thing that I'm concerned about is my ruler doesn't reach. Ah, yes it does. It just reaches both sides. Both ends. You can't see that end, it's off screen. But I'm going to line this up. Let me slide this mat over. Okay, so my signature is lined up with the edge of the cutting mat. My signature is pushed together, so it's nice and tight. I'm lining it up. And I'm going to use my cutting blade. You don't have to use a rotary cutter, you can use a craft knife, of course. Okay, So that's one side. Now to cut the length, it's about 7.9 inches again, or 20 centimetres. So this is going to be the top of my signature. So I'm just getting all the pages pushed to the top. I do have a video where I'm probably a little bit more, 7.9 isn't it? I do have another video of me cutting pages, and I'll try and find that and pop the link down below. Okay, so let's make sure this one fits. That's going to be perfect. So I'm going to cut the rest of these. So I've actually worked on the books for a bit. They are now, the signatures are bound, and I have them in the covers. Now, I'm going to link the videos that I've done previously. I think it's under junk journal creating or junk journal tutorials. I have a playlist with me sewing signatures and popping the signature into a cover. So I'm going to link that down below. It's been very dark and very rainy here, so I didn't film it. This is the 3 signature book. I'm just going to show you some of the stamping that I did. I've got to have the lights on, unfortunately, because like I said, it's very dark and dingy here where I am at the moment. I'm hoping you can see the stamping. I've stamped on all of the Arteza paper, so it has worked out really nicely. I'm really pleased with how it stamps. Just a little bit of trimming to do there. I love the little vole stamp. He's done with I used the archival inks, and this is the potting soil, but I've got black just at the tip of his tail, on his paws and on his nose. They're all multicoloured, the stamps. I didn't do them all. This one again, his whiskers are in the black, and his little paws, the hair itself is in the potting soil. I'll just show you a couple of the stamps that I've done in this one. Yeah, I definitely will be purchasing and using the this one. I'm really happy with. I love that. Yeah, I will certainly be buying this sketch paper. I really do like it. The only thing is the archival ink slightly, ever so slightly bleeds, but not as much as the printer paper, so that's pretty good. And that one is there's some blue and some red and some black on that one. So those stamping platforms are probably much better to do this type of stamping in with. Possibly, you know, you've still got to ink the right part of the stamp, so I just do it all in one go. So I've chosen 2 fabrics to use on the spines of my journals. They were both gifted to me. This one I definitely got from the lovely Wendy and Leo. Thanks, Wendy. This one I haven't had it very long, and for the life of me I cannot recall who sent me this, but it was folded beautifully, and I just think because it's yellow it will just go really nicely with this cover. So I'm going for this one. So I'm going to use the cutting mat. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I did cut to the brown edge, and I don't know if you can see that. I've actually the fabric has squashed into the board, so I'm going to have to give that a good clean. I'm going to line that up, put the ruler in place. And there's obviously some stretchiness to the fabric, so I want to make sure That looks pretty good, lined up at 3 inches. So I'm going to take my cutter. Hopefully I don't hit my head on the phone again. And that comes away nicely. It still has pushed the fabric into the cut. So that is 2.5 inches of this fabric. I'm going to open that out a bit. Luna's holding it still for me. Thank you, Luna. She's gone from not wanting to be on camera to being like, hello, I'm here. Just to let you know. And this is 2.5 inches. Now, the other thing I do love about this board is the dots at the 1/2 inches, and they go all the way down. So they do make a really good guide for cutting. Okay. That's not quite straight. It's probably because I'm trying to film it rather than doing it without you being here watching. I think that moved. Okay. Yeah, I've got the fabric caught in the board again. Maybe I'm heavy-handed. Maybe it's me. I don't know if you can you see where the fabric has kind of squashed into the board. It's coming out a little bit where I've slightly bent the board. And obviously it's not going to self-heal with the fabric caught in there, so I do need to get that out. Okay, so I've cut the fabric and I've laid it on the books, and I've got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure I've made the right decision in terms of fabrics. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little think and I'm going to be right back. This really hasn't been a great day for filming. I've had a few disasters. So I'm going to tell you what I've done. The first thing I did was I changed the cover spine fabric. So I kept the brown, but because I wasn't 100% sure of the stripes, I've also added a piece of muslin over that. I was going to sew it, and then I thought I actually don't want the stitches because I want this to be quite a clean cover. So I have used fabric glue, and I did attach the whole spine fabric piece with Fabri-Tac. This piece I attached with the same glue that I used to glue this, because it doesn't tend to show through the muslin, and that was my high-tack fabric glue. Now, it appeared to have been glued shut, so after several minutes of me trying, my other half trying to open it, I decided to cut it. Once I put the scissors in, glue went everywhere, over me, over my chair, it went everywhere. So obviously that was sorted out, and I'm now back on track, but it was raining so hard you wouldn't have been able to hear anything, so I went ahead and did the gluing. What I am going to do is just add, if I can do this with the smallest amount, if you put that on too thick it will absolutely show through the muslin, which is fine in some cases, but I don't want it to show through on here. But I'm much happier with these covers now. Quite happy with how they've turned out. Now, those of you that have a keen eye may have noticed that this particular cover has also changed, in as much as the rabbits or the hares are now in different places. So what happened was, after I did the inking, after I did this, I had quite a lot of the distress ink over the work surface that I was using at the time. And then I proceeded to put the book down and open it up and do a couple of things. And when I closed it, I had the Forest Moss ink all over the front and the back. So what I've done is I've cut a second piece I put a very dark ink around the first layer, and I've overlapped another layer over the top of that to cover up all of the ink. So that was how I resolved that problem. So there is a hollow hidden spine on these journals, and what I've done is I've cut some cardstock. So on this particular journal, I went through the paper pad and I actually preferred to use the same piece of cardstock on the inside cover that I have used on the outside cover. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue these into place. I'm not going to do that on film, but I will glue these onto place. So this is the hair. You do get 4 pieces of each cardstock, which is really cool in this paper pad, but I've now used 3 of the hair. I've only got 1 sheet of this left, so I might need to purchase more. The links for the cardstock that I've used are in the description box. There is a link to the products and materials that I use on my website. So I'm going to add this. I am going to use my Fabri-Tac. I so love the stamps. The stamps are amazing. Really pleased with how they turn out. Okay, so I'm going to add a good amount. I'm not going to sew a pocket in. I have made a pocket which I will glue in place as long as it looks okay, because obviously I made the pocket for the front covers before I decided which cardstock I was using and before I'd put the journal together, so it might not work. We will see. I have a video already of a mini file folder or a mini ephemera folder that I've made to go in these journals, which I will show, and I'll also do a video for maybe some tags. But in terms of envelopes and things like that, I have made a few already. We can do a video to make a few pieces of ephemera, but I'm going to be using bits and pieces that I've already made to fill these journals. This is where it starts to get a little bit difficult on your hands. So I'm going to pop that into place. Okay. Right, so rather than glue the other one in place on camera, I'm just going to say this is the one for the other journal, the floral journal, and this is the one I've made for the inside pocket of this, and I think it's going to go quite well actually. It's a faux ephemera maths flashcard, and I've used some of the toadstool ephemera pieces, and I've just added a tiny little tag on there with a brad. So that's attached with a brad. What I do need to do is just glue something over this brad because it's going to stick out a little bit. Now I do think this is still quite bright, so I'm going to take my trusty makeup brush, make sure that's stuck properly, make sure that closes properly. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm just going to give this a light ink just to darken that up very slightly. I don't want it too dark, but I just want to take some of that brightness away. Okay. Oh, I've got my little strings from the glue. So I'm going to add some glue along here, and I have backed this onto cardstock, so it's quite sturdy. It's going to be quite a sturdy pocket in the front here. And that should still move just to add a little bit of interest. It's not actually going to do anything. There we go. So that's the front and the cover. We've just got to add a little book plate or something on the front cover, and then the actual journal itself is finished, and we're just going to add a few interesting bits inside. But the project in terms of using the Arteza products is pretty much done. So this is quite a nice size journal. What I will tell you is these two journals will be for a giveaway. So keep watching if you want to know more about the giveaway. Yeah, so we're getting there. The project is coming together. Thanks very much for watching. I will put any relevant links down below. Don't forget there is 10% off code for Arteza products. And I suppose we should just sort of recap really. So the ruler, there's not a problem with that not having a metal edge. I'm finding the ruler quite easy to use. The cutting mat is a quilter's cutting mat, so I'm not sure if it's because what I'm using it for or how I'm using it, but I have found it's marking and it is pushing the fabric into the cutting mat. It's a fantastic working surface though, and it's perfect for filming. It's a lovely size, so I am really happy with the board. The paint does have a lovely finish. It did need 2 coats. One coat wasn't enough for certainly for the brown on the darker blue cover, but it does have a nice finish, and the colours are really easy to mix, much easier to mix than the Reeves paint that I was using. There seems to be a lot more option for colour mixing, and the colours are nicer that you can produce. So I am really happy with the paint. The paper I think is absolutely superb. I so much prefer it to the copier paper. You couldn't probably use as much of it because it is a bit thicker than the copier paper. It's not as thick as the cartridge paper. So if you wanted a kind of middle of the road, not too thick, not too thin, the sketch paper from Arteza is fantastic for the journals. I love the way you can stamp onto it. It's taken the tea stain really well. So, you know, the paper, I cannot fault it. I'm really, really happy with the paper. So, thanks again for watching, and I will see you soon with another instalment. Bye.